Okay. I went to Audio Advice Live 2024. Just wanted to give my impressions on everything I saw. I went for about 5 hours on the Saturday, and after about 5 hours, I'm pretty much cooked. Right, I'm done. I've seen enough, I've heard enough, and it's time. It's time to go after a while. That's just how I am with. I guess that's how I am with anything, right? I'm just like, okay, I've heard enough. But those 5 hours, I definitely got to see a lot of interesting setups and talk to some very interesting people, especially the Trinnov guys. Really, really good conversation there. Now this is in the lobby. And they had, is it Macintosh or Macintosh? I'll probably call it Macintosh, but I don't know if that is how you pronounce it. These guys have got some crazy, crazy good gear, and some excellent speakers. Like, this is, I have no idea what's going on with this setup. Like, I was just, I was admiring this as I just walked in. But like, their gear, to me, it reminds me of the 80s, just kind of modernized, right, to look very modern. But it reminds me of 80s gear, this does. And this type of gear is like real, like, center stage, really like show-off pieces of gear. And yeah, it's good. I mean, while I was walking up the elevator, it sounded excellent, right? It did sound good. I didn't get to demo it, like, really, but yeah, it does look good. So yeah, I wanted to go in order, but I didn't take a picture of this disc. This was free. They gave this for free as we walked in, and it's a CD of Vivaldi Piazzolla, The Four Seasons. This is like classical music. I don't listen to like audiophile music at all, to be honest, or classical. I don't despise it. I just don't listen to it, right? But I thought, well, after demoing some of the stuff throughout the day, I wanted to hear how something like this sounded on a good CD player and analog, because lately I've actually been listening to a lot of things just on my Panasonic UB9000, which is digital, and the differences are definitely there. Things are more laid back analog than digital. So I listened to this on my SACD player Technics, and this sounded absolutely just amazing. Incredible sound quality. And this is just like, I mean, you can say this is just CD quality, but CDs still sound excellent today, right? They really do. And especially with recording this high, quality this high. I think this was 24-bit 96. And I often think to myself, do we really need higher than that? I just don't think we do. If you've heard this, you can just, you know, this is on CD and it just sounds so good. So yeah, very impressed there. So I've actually been listening to that now for a few days since I've got back, because I've been so impressed by it. And yeah, so quick story is, before I came to the event, I thought, well, this is going to be a long day, right? So I thought, should I drink a coffee or have something like that? Because I need to be going all day, right? So this was a bad decision, right? Because I don't drink coffee at all. I'll have a herbal tea, right? But I don't drink any coffee. I don't have any stimulants, right? Or anything really like that. I'll have some wine at the weekends, but I don't like have like caffeine and things like that. Chocolate, I don't do any of that anymore. But I thought it was going to be a really good idea, because it's going to be a long day, right? So I had a coffee, when within about 30 minutes, like, I was like, I'm getting really hot, and my whole body started to sweat. Unfortunately, like, when I was meeting a lot of people throughout the day, like, I was shaking people's hands and my hands were like sweating. So if anyone watches this video, I do apologize if my hands are like that. Lesson learned, don't drink coffee anymore. So, yeah. But that was probably my only issue that day. So this was actually at the end of the day, and the reason I've pictured it here, so this was like an hour discussion, and most of the people here I actually don't know. I think I've seen this guy before. I think he's English, and he does like a lot of high-end audio design. I think I definitely have seen it, but I don't really know these people apart from Gene from Audioholics. So I saw Gene was on the, you know, the ballot to talk, and I was like, okay, let me see this, because I was like kind of wrapping up the day, and it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I thought, okay, let me check this out and just see what they're talking about. And it was they was talking about like general audio, but it was 2-channel audio mostly, but they was talking about general audio setup, and that most of us, I think, overthink a lot of these things. Like, hey, if you have a really high-end audio, some high-end audio equipment, you absolutely must have room treatment, right? And these guys were really saying, like, you don't have to, right? I think the guy on the end here said his audio setup is not perfect, right? He has a couch on, say, the side of a room. It's not absolutely perfectly symmetrical. He also has, like, say, sliding doors maybe, or glass or something like that. And a lot of these people were saying that not everybody's audio experience and the setup is going to be absolutely perfect. And I could kind of resonate with that. Like, you know, as you go through your audio experience and your buy-in purchases and things like that, you kind of get into this trap of always like chasing the next thing. And they were really saying, like, you know, try to just be happy with the equipment that you have. And yeah, sure, if there's something that you know that you absolutely can improve on, go for it. But the whole point of this audio journey is to really enjoy it, right? And I think a lot what a lot of these guys were saying, well, what they was all saying, was I think what a lot of people needed to hear. I really do. Another thing is, I think there's a lot of stigma with 2-channel, not using a subwoofer, and I think a lot of these guys were basically saying, yes, I use a sub. Like, you just need a sub to get that low deep bass. You just have to get that. And I mean, I agree. I don't think it really matters what speakers you have. I think having equivalent subs, again, for the power compared to what your speakers are, I just think they sound better with subs. What else? Now, this guy here, again, I don't know who these people actually are. He really resonated with something that he said, or I resonated with something he said, and that was power and how power distribution between gear works. And he said, this is something to think about. When you buy cheap speakers, they're extremely inefficient, right? Very inefficient. Like, the cheapest speakers are actually the hardest speakers to drive. And I actually thought about that, and I'm like, that's actually true, because most of the cheap speakers, or cheaper speakers, that I've been buying, even the basic ELACs, right, the debut, which I had before, then I went on to say the unifiers, they were all pigs to drive, right? The sensitivity is like 83, I think, maybe even lower than that. And it is true that the cheaper gear is actually harder to drive than the better gear. I mean, if you look up, well, I upgraded to SVS, right? SVS, I gained like 4 dB out of the same volume. So the higher gear you're getting, the better sensitivity, the much better sensitivity you're getting, it makes them easier to drive. You actually need less power, But his whole point, though, apart from that, was always kind of over amplify your gear. And the reason is because he's basically saying nobody complains about that they have too much amplification, right? And I think that is really key to why say my room I think sounds really good, is because everything is over-spec'd for the size of the room. I have a Denon flagship A1H receiver, way too much power for that room. I have two THX subs, monolith, way too much bass for that room. The SVS Pinnacles towers, they're the top of the line from SVS, and honestly, they're too much for that room. The center, I'd say, is probably just about right. I think that's about right for my room from SVS, but I resonated with that really. It's almost like I wish I'd have seen this first. And the reason why I'm putting this image first is because it's an interesting discussion about power and how much power you need to make rooms sound good, right? So kind of like with that said, this is the Trinnov guy. And yeah, I may as well talk about the Trinnov stuff first. But the reason I did mention the power thing is this was the demo with a Trinnov Altitude 32, I think. It looked a nice setup, but to me it didn't sound good. And I'm not talking from a tonality point of view. It's just the bass there was no bass in the room. Like they had 4 subwoofers in this room, and the room was pretty massive, right? Like this room is big. And to me there was no impact, like, whatsoever in the sound. And after hearing that conversation at 2 o'clock, I was like, okay, well, see, they had 4 subs, like these are 13s, I think. I mean, I think my subs are bigger than these, even though they are. I think these are 13s. My subs take more floor space. They're bigger than these, and there was just no real bass there. So this comes down to, again, power, right? Is to make a room sound good, what is required to make it sound good? Now, these in my room, if I had 2 of them, I know I could get them to sound good. I mean, I don't know how much these costs. How much this costs. I'm assuming I could get the same performance out of these subs as my current ones. Maybe better. Again, I haven't looked into costs or anything like that. The fact that they're focals, though, I'm assuming they are more expensive than mine, and they should generally be better than mine. But let's just say I could get them sounding the same. And maybe they even have more power and more drive and things like that. It all depends on the power needed for that room for it to sound good. And what I'm trying to say is this sub here may sound almost exactly the same as the subs that I've got in my room, just because of how much volume I need for that room to sound at a particular level, right? I think 2 subs sounds really, really good. I couldn't get 4. I just couldn't place. I'm not going to be able to place 4. Maybe I could get a 3rd sub in there, but the 3rd sub is really just taking the heat off of each one, because you put another sub in, you can lower the volume by 3 to 6 dB, right? So it takes the edge, that power requirement, off of each one. And yeah, I just wasn't impressed by this room. When it has the best processor, regarded as the best processor in the world, a Trinnov, it has all of this incredible gear, but I don't think they took the room size into account. Because this room had 4 subs, for me, just for me judging this, like how bass in my room sounds versus this room, I honestly think you'd need 12 subs, maybe more, 12 or 16 subs for this room to sound as good as the bass does in my room. And now this isn't about the price of gear. It's about, again, power of how much is needed to make it sound good in the room. So this room was way underpowered. Like, it was severely underpowered. Now these speakers did sound good, but for me, and I know these are expensive speakers, but we can still judge expensive speakers. And because I feel as though I know tonality so well in my speakers and the way things sound and are neutral in my room, these speakers don't sound forward at all. They sound soft. However, and vocally. So let's see this really quick. I just want to show you something. Like, for tonality reasons, I'm just talking here. Okay. Let's have a look. 1 second. Where are we? All right, Harman target curve. It always comes back down to the Harman target curve. So these speakers, right? These speakers, to me, and including the center, which is not necessarily a good thing in my opinion. To me, it sounded like from around here, there was like a dip, probably again to around 5K, 5 or 6K. There was a dip here, but then there was a treble raise, right? There was treble raise. They had kind of like that tingly presence. These tweeters had that really tight, like slightly overdone treble. And I, from my experience at the show, most of these high-end speakers, I'm not going to say they had the same, but most of the high-end speakers had a very similar sound from that perspective. Now, I'm not saying they sounded exactly the same. Every speaker's going to sound different in different rooms and things like that. But they had this kind of softness in the mid-range, which creates a more musical sound. That's great for music, but for movies, I don't think that sounds as good. They put on The Greatest Showman, some of the singing scenes in there, and I didn't feel the center channel sounded like it had as much clarity as I feel as though you need from a center channel, personally. One thing, now they had, these were the mains, like left and right, and they had a slightly smaller speaker in the same family though, for front wides and the other side as well. So one thing I feel as though it was good at is moving sound around the room. I didn't really hear too much behind me, but up until around this point to the sides of me and things like that, it did sound very spacious. They put on the Queen movie. It sounded good. There was a lot of space in the air, right? I honestly think that was helped by the room as well. Having a room that's so large does create a sound stage as though it is larger as well. But yeah, I feel as though the Queen demo is a little bit overplayed. Like I went last year as well, and I know a lot of people were playing that, and I'm just personally not impressed by it. I'm not saying it sounds bad, but I wasn't impressed. They put on Aquaman, the second one, and you know, for an action movie, there was just no bass. So for me, it just lost its impact. The problem is with shows is that the look and spectacle of these speakers, your mind almost is, I feel, is tricking you into thinking that it sounds better than it actually is. So I think this was the biggest screen they had at the show, and this was the biggest. I think this is like the biggest demo room, and I had it in my head that this was gonna blow my system away. Now all the gear blows my gear away, but in a particular room size, to me, again, it just didn't sound better than what I have at home. And again, this comes down to power. This comes down to how you have each room set up in a particular way. This needed like so many more subs and power to make this sound truly exceptional. And yeah, it was just underpowered. So before that, for about 30 minutes, I was talking to John here from Trinnov, and me and him are terrible because I actually felt bad for a few other people standing behind us. I saw there was somebody standing behind me, and after a while, I just said, "Hey, I'll let you go," because you know, I can just talk all of the time about audio, especially this type of stuff, because with this, most of the questions I'm having with Trinnov is the actual calibration side of it. You know, how it calibrates, how you use it, and things like that. So, yeah, we were just talking for a while until people really started coming into the show, because I got there pretty early. You know, I was there at like 10. So, but yeah. Now, one thing is with Trinnov is I went there last year and I went there this year, and I'm kind of like just gathering information about what it can do and things like that. For me, though, who has a Denon flagship with multi-EQX, I'm just thinking from my perspective, there's nothing that Trinnov can offer me that I'm not already getting. I haven't been sold the Trinnov experience yet, personally. You know, yeah, sure, you have 4 microphones that measure distance, timing, and things like that. Plus, the microphone can detect exactly where your speaker is in the room and tailor the sound to the exact layout that you have. But that's not enough to sell me, right? That's not enough to say I must have a Trinnov because of this reason. So waveforming as well. So I should have mentioned that with the subs. Waveforming wasn't at this show. At least I don't think it was in any of the other rooms. I don't think so anyway. At least in the demo room that I went to, because I kind of wanted to hear like waveforming, and I guess maybe it's too advanced for this type of show. I don't know, but that's what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear like even bass, like say throughout the room, and 4 subs, you know, 13-inch subs or whatever they were, just aren't going to cut it. So, but yeah, me and him was talking for a long time. One thing I will say as well about Trinnov is, with like say target curves and things, I felt, because I asked John, and I just felt as though, say, like I just did, say in REW here, right, you import, say, a target curve from a text file. I felt as though that was either difficult on a Trinnov or they didn't actually allow it. I'm not really too sure. So, because these have like a target curve maker, and it's more like, it's kind of like a graphic, almost like a graphic EQ with lots and lots of individual bands. I guess you can move them around. But again, currently the way I work and the way I calibrate my system, and I have calibrated other people's systems, it feels like a little bit of a hindrance to me. You know, I'm having to make target curves by dragging things and making it myself. It just, I don't know, it to me, it just feels a little antiquated the way they're doing it. That's just me, right? And again, because Trinnov gear, everyone says is, say, the best gear and things like that. What I'm coming from, I'm personally not seeing it, right? Again, they had a Trinnov in the demo room, and was I completely blown away by it? Was I completely blown away by it? No, I wasn't. So, hard to say, really. I would love to go to a show where Trinnov personally have calibrated their system with waveforming, with absolutely everything. Like, and they say, this is our demo, and this is what you can achieve with our gear. Right? That's kind of the demo I want to see. I don't want to see a demo room that is under-spec'd for the size of the room. I don't want to, it was, for me, kind of a waste. And really a waste of all this, like, really good gear, just by being completely under-spec'd. Now, I will say something about video. They was running the video off of a Kaleidoscope, and they was having, I could tell they was having like handshake issues, like with the audio or the video. I don't know what was causing that. Is it the Trinnov causing that, or is it the Kaleidoscope causing that? Is it going through a MadVR processor? Probably. Like, what is causing this like handshake issue? They couldn't get audio on one of the demos, and like even the audio is like really delayed, because when they click a new video, the audio is delayed by like 2 seconds. Now, I'm not saying it wasn't synced. When the audio and the video was playing together, it was synced, but the video came on before, and then the audio doesn't like click in until like 2 seconds after. I just find that really, really strange. I really do. I have no idea what's going on there. So, plus, because everyone says like Kaleidoscope is like the reference video system and things like that. So again, I can afford to be picky with this stuff. And this projector was like I think it was a JVC, is like $29,000. And the 235 borders for Aquaman, there was ringing in the 235 borders. Now, ringing can be caused by upscaling, but unless the projector is 8K and it has to downscale to 4K, generally you don't see it from downscaling though. Generally you would only see it from upscaling, and this should have been 4K. From a Kaleidoscope it should have been 4K. But to me, to my eyes, it looked like Blu-ray. Now this may be because the screen was so large, but the fact that I could see ringing in a 235 border, I was like, look, this is just not good, right? I don't know how they have their processor set up, if they are using a MadVR and things like that, but this is stuff there's no way I could watch that. There's zero way I could watch that. Now, I know I'm really picky about video, and I'm kind of picky about audio as well. It's a love for home theater, which is not now just video, it is audio as well, and it's the whole package, right? You can't have like incredible speakers like this, and then the video quality for me, the video quality for me looked obviously sharpened. To my eyes, it looked sharpened, and it just, to me, it didn't look good at all. Like, I knew right away. I could tell instantly that it was sharpened. Or there was something weird going on with it. So yeah, it didn't look good. And projectors, again, can't display blacks. Like the 235 border was grey. Maybe it depends what display you're watching this on, but if you're watching it on an LCD, these borders for me, this black is grey because this is an LCD like laptop. And once you get used to OLED, I'm sorry, I just can't go back. You know, I don't care about the screen size. Yeah, it is kind of nice. You do get immersed into it with a big screen size. You do have these big speakers and everything all around you. But no, not for me. You're just not displaying the colors as an OLED would be, so I can't watch it, and I will remain that way for as long as I must, because picture quality and sound must be together. And for somebody like me, the picture quality really destroyed the presentation, and the presentation itself on audio as well just didn't have any bass either, so I was just left deflated. And it's like where you have the promise of a Trinnov system, these incredibly expensive speakers, and you're underwhelmed, right? So that's just my experience from that room. And I'm also trying not to be sold by the glitz and glamour, you could say, of a presentation room, right? I'm always trying now as well to think about what my system sounds like. And there was never a point in this demo where I could feel the bass on my clothing, my body, or anything. And I'll be honest, that I feel as though the subs were rolling off at 50 hertz with no low end whatsoever. So, yeah. Same with the center channel. It was, I think it's a music center channel rather than a center channel made for movies. And the reason I say that is because, to me, movies do sound better, say, with, a Harman curve. And I always go back to the Harman curve, is because, to me, it's a neutral sound. This is a neutral sound. You start deviating away from this target, and if your crossover around here from, say, 1K to 5K, the crossover to the tweeter would be anywhere in here, chances are it's going to be around 2K. You're going to get some type of dip, right? There's going to be a dip. And that can sound really good for music. Because our ears are so sensitive in this area, having this actually dull or softened some makes the sound not as forward. It does sound more musical. And if you increase treble here, which I swear a lot of these top-end speakers, high-end speakers were doing, you do get this really nice musical sound. But that's music, right? Movies, in my opinion, you want a sound that is, I will say, not distorted from a balanced sound. That's what I think. You know, you can have your fun with music, but when it comes to movies, especially dialogue clarity, it really, I don't want to see much deviation from this, because I can hear it. However expensive these speakers are, I can hear their tonality on the sound. I can hear their signature on the sound, which was this high-end treble, this wispy treble, which was, I just hear it was too high. And singing dialogue clarity was a little subdued. So it really depends on their targets and things like that. One thing I'll say as well is John here was saying about targets and how they feel about it. From what I understood is they don't really see as one target for, say, all situations. And look, I do agree with that. And the reason I do is because my last speakers sounded better with a different target, and my new SVS speakers sound better with a different target, right? An actual Harman target curve. They just sound better that way. A room can influence how the target makes the sound as well, things like that. So from that perspective, I do agree with him. But from the way he was talking, it felt as though it was like, hey, have fun with this. Hey, I want more bass, so let's put a bit more bass in. Let's have less treble or more treble. Hey, we want that hi-fi sound, that musical sound. So at 10K, if the word is semblance, we're going to put more in. And it was kind of like, hey, in a Trinnov, you can tailor make your target curve to sound as you like sound. I respect the idea, but I want a standard to go by, right? This is why, kind of for me, I base sound and the way a speaker sounds off of this target. I know how it sounds. It just sounds neutral. It doesn't have high treble. It has good treble, but it doesn't sound voice and dialogue clarity. It's not swinging one way or the other. So I'd almost like Trinnov to come up with a more standardized target curve for their own system. Now, I know from what I was looking at their UI, he was showing me, there are lists of different target curves and things like that, and you can edit each one of them and things like that. But again, importing my own, I don't know, I felt as though it potentially they didn't want you to do that, or not sure. There was another guy that was talking to John at the time, and I kind of just moved in and joined the conversation with them. And it was an owner of the product, and I was just talking backwards and forth with him and them together, because I think it's good to get an experience or a viewpoint of how somebody else, a user, is using the Trinnov. One thing that did impress me is he had a phone app for his Trinnov, and it was either done over the web or it was done via the app. I'm not sure if there is an app thing for the Trinnov, but he could literally connect to his Trinnov from the show, and that is impressive. But again, I'm still coming from the point of view, what is it about a Trinnov that makes me want to buy a Trinnov? Like, please show me, right? Because everything I have seen so far and the demo I heard, it's not selling me personally. Tell me and show me something that I cannot achieve on my Denon that you can achieve on a Trinnov, but it makes a real world difference. That's like where I'm coming from. I've just not seen anything yet that you can do that. That just takes even calibration to the next level. Like, I want to see a room where, all right, this is our Trinnov room, and this is what we do to calibrate the system. Like, this is the advantages of using a Trinnov versus your lowly Denon Marantz receiver. Like, that's what I want to be shown. I want to be shown that. And that's the thing. So far, I haven't been shown that. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sold yet. I'm not saying I'm not saying I'm not ever going to be sold on, say, a Trinnov, but when you are in that price range, I really want to know what separates you from a Denon with multi-EQX when you are calibrating manually for yourself. Like, you have control over absolutely everything. Okay, that's the level we're at. So now show me what a Trinnov can do that is different, right? Now you might say, well, a Trinnov have much better bass control. Forget waveforming for now. They have much better bass EQ than Audyssey multi-EQX. That I would agree with, because I use a MINI-DSP to do control my bass with. So yeah, but that's a few $100 difference, right? You know, multi-EQX is $200 to add to your receiver. If you get the basic 2x4 mini DSP, it's $200, right? So we're at this low level, and I'm just not seeing enough. You know, how can I get my bass to sound better on a Trinnov? Forget waveforming for now and all of that type of stuff. The actual EQ side of it, I'm just not seeing it yet. But again, I want almost like a workshop room to this, rather than just seeing, hey, how a demo room set up, right? I'd like to hear a demo room, and again, like kind of from Trinnov's setup point of view, like this is as good as it gets, right? All right, I want to be shown that. I want to know what that sounds like. So yeah, I did want to spend a lot. I know I spent a lot of time here with Trinnov and talking about that. It's because that's where I actually spent most of my time, you know, and trying to understand it and things like that, and just asking like lots of different questions. But it was enjoyable. You know, that was really to be honest, that was the highlight of my day, really, because it's kind of like Trinnov really is the stepping stone to the ultra high-end experience. At least it should be, right? So I'm really trying to answer or get as many questions answered as possible for that. So, yeah. All right. Next, yeah, MadVR. So MadVR is a processor for video, right? And for me, the strongest point of a MadVR is tone mapping to a display without Dolby Vision, right? From what I've seen, and I would like to see this at a show, and that is something playing in Dolby Vision, something playing without the MadVR in HDR10, and then the MadVR, versus the other two, like to see how well it does. Because the strongest things I have seen is, say, 10,000 nits, say, Spears and MUNSIL content, and perfect tone mapping on the MadVR on the other side. Like, it is very impressive. 1917, the movie, they demoed that. One was with HDR10 and the other with MadVR turned on. I thought the MadVR version did look better, much better. And somehow the screen was brighter as well. And I'm not really too sure how they're getting the brightness from certain parts of their image. Is it going beyond like director's intent to get it that bright? Because there was a lot of shots that I'm just like, is it supposed to look that bright? It really did look bright. And the tone mapping that was done on this display was for 120 nits. And that would have been 120 nits average picture level. So, you know, the true highs and lows, I don't really know. Again, though, I'm kind of sold on MadVR. Like, they've just released this cheaper version here, which does everything that I would want it to do, which is really the tone mapping, to be honest. The bottom one here, the Extreme, I think it is. It does like the 60 frames per second and things like that. I want that turned off anyway. Like, they engaged the lowest version, which was cinematic, and I could instantly tell it was still on. To me personally, I knew there was some type of smoothing going on. So because I said I want it. I want to see it at the lowest level, and I feel as though it was. I don't know. It didn't seem right to me. So I guess that's the limit of the smoothing. At least I think. I think so. I don't know if it could go less. Because I said to them, you can really tell that the frame rate is more juddery on an OLED. So could you just reduce that? Is there anything to just make that slightly smoother? And I don't think so. So, okay. I just had to take a phone call, but I am back now. So just a quick edit there. But yeah, the MadVR. So, not 100% sold on MadVR. However, I'm very impressed with what it can do. But the biggest thing for me is how I can use it in my system. I can see everything that it is doing to make the picture and image, the image look better and things like that. But I need to see it. I need to see it on my own TV, right? I can't. For me, it's not good enough to see it at a show. And even though, yes, things look very impressive in a show, what is it doing for my home experience? You know, for my enjoyment of these movies and the way, what I look for in picture quality, everything, what is it doing? One other thing, I think as well, a lot of people won't pick up on is the video that was showing on these TVs was in 8-bit, and there was output in like 10 or 12-bit video. And the reason I knew it, even though I saw it in the top left, I knew it because I could see bit depth errors on this is Interstellar, and I could see bit depth errors on some of the color fades and things like that. Now that is sometimes a look that Christopher Nolan wants, especially with film and things like that, of things not being absolutely perfect. But that's not how it looks on 4K disc. On 4K disc, it does not look like that. So their demos are not in true 10-bit video. So that's kind of weird as well. Like, why are you not getting the demos in true 10-bit and things like that? I don't know. So I don't think the demos look as good as they could. And it might take a Hawkeye, like somebody like me, to like, I can see that there's bit depth errors in this image. Other people probably won't notice it, like that are just like walking by and just maybe taking a look. But I can definitely see those errors. One thing I'm not too sure about as well is their output in RGB. Not really too sure why though. I know RGB is lossless, but I wonder how many displays actually have like real difficulty displaying true RGB, like true RGB as a PC output. Like you would on my C9, I think you have to be in PC mode to output RGB like that at 444. So again, I need to see like what we can do on our display. Like, what does it need to be in YCBR or RGB to get it to actually look its best? So until I see this on my own home theater, I can't really make a judgment about it. Like, it has to be an environment which I absolutely know, and I absolutely know how this picture looks, and this is what a processor does to it. So again, it's really difficult to like truly see. The tone mapping though, I am blown away with. One thing about the tone mapping though that is a little disconcerting to me is, again, this is why I kind of want to see Dolby Vision standard and the tone mapped version. And the reason is because in Spears and MUNSIL, the demo, there's horses standing in snow. If you know the demo, there's horses standing in the snow, and in 10,000 nits, everything's blown out, right? It is. But on the MadVR, it's absolutely perfect. The big thing for me, though, is the color of the horses is different from one screen to the other. That may have something to do with the way an image is tone mapped, and that's maybe how it's supposed to look. But this is why I'd love to see a Dolby Vision versus that, just on that particular demo, because I need to know the colors are the same, right? If the colors are too overdone using a MadVR, then again, are you going beyond what the director's intent is supposed to be? Most TVs have like dynamic tone mapping on them, and sometimes they can go overboard with the actual brightness and how it's supposed to look. So again, I have to see this on my own display. And that's the thing as well, like it's going back to say a Trinnov. It's like I need it in my own house and see how I would use it and see if I could get along with it and things like that. I almost need a trial run, because when you're spending that amount of money, I can't invest in, say, $16,000 processor. That's without any amplifiers, by the way. And I have to know that that product is really for me. It's same with this. So I think as well, this is an interesting point, because when you're at the max level of, say, a Denon processor, you always have to, receiver, and you can manually EQ and tailor your sound to how you like it. What is left? Again, what's out there that can really beat that? I'm still wondering. To be honest, even just on this screenshot, you can tell the colors are bolder than this. This would have been the tone mapped version, and this is, say, not. Difficult to see, but you can see that. So yeah, again, hard to say. So I was just walking around the show, taking some random pictures. I saw some like Sony TVs. I think these were OLEDs, and I just was kind of like looking around. Now they were splitting their image 3 times, and this right screen, you could see like the top flickering. So the way they had their image split didn't look particularly good. And if anyone remembers the old VHS days where there was information at the top of the tapes and maybe even at the bottom, and it could like move, it looked like that. So I pretty much walked out of there pretty quick. Okay, next, clips or clips or clip. I say clips. Yeah, just was walking in some rooms, seeing what they had to offer with demos, things like that. Another room that really wasn't bass heavy. I think they had 4 subs in here, and for me, again, it was slightly underwhelming for the bass. But you can see here, it is a relatively big space that they have to fill. And I wasn't really truly blown away. One thing I will say about, say, these clips speakers is they don't particularly sound neutral either. If anything, they do have a higher touch on treble, but they have a smoother mid-range as well. So again, I think most of these speakers, if I got them back into my house, I can get them to sound a particular way and I would be very happy with them. It's just when I'm walking into demo rooms, I'm kind of thinking, compared to what I have at home, please wow me. That's really where I'm coming from at this point. So, but 4 subs, for me, again, I was expecting to be smashed around a bit, but not really. So, yeah. Now I've kind of like talked about, like say the video side of things and kind of like what I expect from video and, demos and things like that of actual speakers and how things sound at a hi-fi show versus maybe even at home. I guess one way to think about this as well is when you walk into a Best Buy, right? and every TV is in the dynamic mode or vivid mode, is the reason they're doing that is because they're trying to attract people's eyes. Which screen looks the brightest? That one, that's the one I'm taking home, right? Well, with an audio show, if you maybe EQ your sound to neutral and the speakers don't stand out, then you don't really stand out from the other speakers either, right? Because most of the speakers in this building were EQ'd in some way, right? There's some type of EQ going on most of these speakers. I found it rare that there was not EQ done to any of the speakers. I'm actually not sure if SDS did that. I know they did in one of their demo rooms for the surround sound, but maybe not 2-channel. The reason I'm showing this is because I didn't take pictures of the actual room, but I went for a surround sound demo with Martin Logan speakers, and I'm pretty sure they were these. They may have been a pinch smaller, but I think they were these. And I think these are electrostatic speakers. I've never heard these before. So this was an Atmos demo, and this is the music they played. They was pulling it off of Apple Music, and it sounded really good. It sounded good. The tonality of the speakers did definitely sound good. But these speakers do have, again, that high-end treble thing going on, right? And it's, for me, that is almost like a staple I am seeing again at the show. This hi-fi sound of what they're going for is the smooth mid-range and the high treble. But when you listen to music with that, this does sound good. I felt that the guy had this room set up really good for Atmos music. Because I even said to him, I said, you've got this room set up really nicely. And I said the balance is very good. He said he turned the rears up slightly, maybe 1 or 2 dB. But I said to him, I'll be honest, I think that sounds perfect. Because I'm assuming my assumption is what he did is, like, when you level match speakers, like you set everything to 75 dB. This is true, but I feel as though you only get half the way there doing that. With Spears and MUNSIL, if you run, or Joe and Tails disc, spatial audio calibration toolkit, when you run pink noise that moves through the room, you can really hear the volume differences between the speakers. And that adds to, hey, I have everything set to 75 dB with a microphone, but now how do my actual ears hear this sound, right? So from my understanding, he put the rears up, anything behind at around 2 dB. And I felt the balance was really nice, right? One of the things as well in these shows is I'm sitting on a chair right now, and pretty much everyone as well is doing the same. They're sitting on chairs, right? We're not on a couch or anything like that, and nothing is actually blocking our ears. So because I've done these tests as well, when nothing is blocking your ears around 2 dB, you actually get perfect tonality all the way around if you measure 75 dB in your seat. So around 2 dB, this music, I could tell it was balanced so well, really well. It had good tonality, and again, the only thing I heard was that slight treble brightness. But yeah, I mean, you're probably going to be saying, what, you're complaining about these speakers? I mean, I'm at least trying to be objective about the way they sound, right? And I think one of the benefits of these speakers is at this range, around here, probably 6 to 8K, around there, the treble just becomes, there's no roll off on these speakers, right? They don't roll off, at least by the sounds of it. And the clarity is exceptional. So, I mean, there's no question you can do anything that you want with these speakers. You really can. So, but I'm not I'll have a look after this how much they cost. I'll probably fall over by how much they cost. But I mean, they are a great looking speaker, I think. And yeah, the guy who EQ'd it, I was talking to him just for a little bit. And what processor was he using? It wasn't a Denon and Marantz, it was something else. But yeah, he did have it set up really nice. Another thing I saw what people were doing is they were using monoblock amps for the LCRs, and the rest of the speakers don't need that. And I agree with that. Like the front sound stage, the front left, right, center is so important for power, but the rest is not needed in the same way. And that was the same for this setup, playing this music. Stephen Wilson said it absolutely excellent. Oh, and this from Star Wars, really nice. Excellent sound. I actually asked for Yes. What's it called? Yes. I can't remember what it's called now. It's Yes with there's a picture of Earth. I can't remember what that's called now. Fragile. I think it's called Fragile. But there's no Atmos version on Apple Music, so I was like, I even joked to them. I said, it's on Blu-ray. It's on Blu-ray disc. You don't have it on here. They're like, no. And I think he was saying it's probably something to do with licensing and things like that. But because I said to him, like, that's the best Atmos disc I've heard. Well, it's the best Atmos disc I've heard this year. It's absolutely amazing. I really wanted to hear that because then I could hear that versus, my own system of how that sounded. One thing that really does, I can't give you a picture here of like the scale of the room, but it was pretty much the same size as this type of size, right? And one thing I will say with a bigger rooms do give more a wider sound, a larger sound. They really do, and I actually do like that. My room is relatively small. I think it's 16, actually maybe 15 by 19 or 21. So, but I do like that. I definitely do like that. Yeah, that was, to me though, this was a good demo, and it was a good demo because of the balance of the sound and the system. I felt as though it was done well. So, yeah, I like that. One thing I will say though about again the bass, because they were using subwoofers in there, I think they were rolled off again. Like this bass, I don't know if it was like the hotel or whatever, but the bass always felt as though it was rolled off at around 50 hertz, and there's no ultra deepness to it. So I asked the guy, what do you crossovers, what are you using? And he was like 80 hertz. I was like, okay. Yeah, I mean, because it did sound good, but just not meaty enough. So, but yeah, that John Williams, I have to hear this in Atmos. That was good. This is SVS. So SVS had two rooms right next to each other. One was a surround sound setup, and the other was just for 2-channel. So I actually couldn't even get into the 2-channel for like at least half an hour because so many people were in there, like listening to the music. It was packed. Like it was really, really packed. So I had to like find other places to go for a little while. So I went into the multi-channel like demo. They were using subs, SB2s or 3000s. Not quite sure which ones, but they're using 2 of them. Again, for me though, pretty much the bass, it sounded a little boomy for me, which if knowing how my room sounds, if it was boomy, it's around that 60 hertz area. The bass sounded a little too fat for me, and wasn't really my thing. And again, it didn't quite go down low enough, so not as low as my subs. This room though is a smaller room, and I'm sure it was probably very difficult to actually, you know, get subs to sound not boomy in a small room like this. Like these rooms were, the SVS rooms, they were like 12 foot by 13 or 14 feet, right? They're very small. I guess you could, almost like a bedroom, right? A smaller bedroom, you could say. That type of setup. But other than that, I thought it sounded really good, right? Just a little boomy on the bass and things like that. But the actual surround sound and things like that sounded really good. Now, I have a feeling that they was only using middle surrounds, not a front. I think they were using middle Atmos, right? And so I assume they would have been mono Atmos. I think that's what it sounded like to me. And the way they got them up onto the ceilings, because I think the guy even said the hotel won't allow us to like drill into the walls and things like that, obviously. So they said like you can get like black MDF, I guess, 1x6 and probably around 5 feet, right? Just some wood, right? And then they tape the speaker basically onto the wall, and they did it both sides. And I was like, yeah, that's actually a good idea. If you're not using anything to like put speakers on and things like that, actually having it taped up there. The reason it's a good idea as well for them is because their speakers angle anyway. They were using these angled speakers from their new range, and I thought it worked really well. I was talking to the guy about the volume levels and things like that, and he was saying most of the channels are negative, right? To actually get them balanced, like the rears were like -3, I think he said. To be honest, they probably could have went up a pinch more, but again, the balance was quite good. Now these were just using a Denon, right? This was a very simple setup. They're using the new center here. Again, center dialogue clarity with this speaker, I thought sounded excellent. And they were still rocking 4K Blu-ray player because everybody else was using Kaleidoscape, right? And look, Kaleidoscape for a show, I do think is probably the best thing to do. But I still like using discs because I thought, wow, these guys are still using discs. Nice. So, yeah. Ready Player One obviously was one of the demos because you know it's still a great demo. That it was just, again, some of the bass just before they jump over the bridge at the very start on the car chase, just before the cars jump over and then there's a big explosion and things like that. One of the who's he with? When they see like Akira's bike, just before that scene, I don't know. Oh, and the train comes. That's it. The train comes smashing through. It just sounded slightly boomy, and again, it's probably the room, and things like that. Because these most subs, even relatively smaller subs like this, in this type of room, can be EQ'd to sound pretty much any way they like. So. Now these guys, because I asked him, are you used on Audyssey? And he said, yeah, but by the sounds of it, they were using the Audyssey phone app. I don't know if that's 100%, but by the sounds of it, that's what they were doing. I actually thought they had it set up really good. So even with these were the smaller speakers, or the mid-range Titan. The one under mine, but these sounded really good, so... Yeah, I was pretty impressed by this. And again, it's in a smaller room, so you got to think of power. They're powering this with a receiver, and for this room, it sounded really good. So again, this comes back to my first conversation about the way how rooms should be set up based on their size, almost like the way THX does, right? THX creates a standard for, this is, say, I don't know their levels, but you know, their lowest level might even be for a bedroom setup like this, and then you go to the next stage and the next stage. For me though, I would always try and go a stage above with amplification, anything that is very high power. Subwoofers always get more than you can than you need. Receiver, if you're buying receivers and not separates, always go with the one that is more powerful or just has that's going to last longer, realistically, right? This is why when I bought, I was already coming from an X6500H Denon. For me, I felt the only way, the only next upgrade may as well be the absolute best one they offer, which was the Denon A1H flagship. So, and the power of that receiver is too much for my room, and that's where I want to be. So I don't feel as though I'm ever held back for any reason. And this was a very similar thing, right? These rooms are relatively small, but what you can get in them with these type of speakers, it makes it sound good. So it's just speccing your room correctly with the correct gear, right? So, but yeah, the Hans Zimmer concert, really good, sounded good, had good tonality, and I didn't really feel as though the way they had it set up, I didn't really feel as though it was swinging either way, right? It wasn't too bright, I felt as though it sounded really good, had nice balance to it. Again, my only thing was probably the bass was a little boomy, right? So yeah, good. Now I couldn't get into the 2-channel for SVS again for a while, so I just went looking around to kill time for a little bit. So I went into AudioQuest and yeah, I was just looking at their gear. I use AudioQuest HDMI cables. I use the Cinnamons, and I was explaining to the person representative that I had an issue with white snow and noise on my screen. And I said to her, I went through about 10 different cables, and the lowest AudioQuest one, and then the one up from that, which I think is Forest. I said to her, I'm like, it did not clear up my problem. But I said, as soon as I went to a Cinnamon, I said it cleared up all of the video issues that I was having. And I said to her, I'm like, I don't know what it is, but I wonder if it's like the amount of silver that was in the cable, or I said I have no idea what it was. But all I know is they're pretty much the only cable I recommend, because they're the only cable that actually cleared up my problem. I wouldn't say who the other HDMI cables were, but I could not get the picture quality and that clearing up that problem without the Cinnamon. So now they were showing me, I have this is a power, I actually don't know what it's called, but it's a line conditioner or power conditioner, whichever way you want to call it. It's the 707. What is it? It's called power something though. Yeah, I don't know. But she demoed me, like, I've seen this demo, most of us have probably seen this demo, like on YouTube and stuff like that, where they demo the noise that's coming out of the outlet and the noise that's coming out of, say, this unit. The noise that's coming out of this unit is basically zero. How that truly impacts audio, I think, is definitely still up for debate. There's no question it works, right? This tech to clean up that sound of noise is working. But again, how much it actually affects equipment that are probably doing this anyway for themselves is again definitely up for debate. But I still like to purchase this type of stuff, right? I think this was around $1,000. And it replaced my old Furman, because the Furman is very similar to this. The specs were very similar. That was about 700. This was around 1,000, but the specs were very similar. But they did say at the show, like, this is a lot more advanced than the old Furman. It's made by the same person who's now joined AudioQuest. But yeah, so I was just looking around and things. And next door they had a GoldenEar setup, just 2-channel. And if this was the first setup in the show that did not sound like that typical hi-fi show setup, the sound was actually more dry. If anything, more analog sounding. Debatably, the treble may have been rolled off some. And I actually asked them, are you using any EQ on this? And they was like, no. So these speakers, yeah, that's all I've got. These speakers, I think they said they're about 6,000. But to me, they're definitely a drier sounding speaker. If you like kind of like it's softer than neutral sounding speaker. That's how I felt. I mean, you can say again at the show, all of these speakers need to be EQ'd, I think, to either your taste or to a particular standard, right? They all have so to speak, they all have their highs, they all have their lows in all price ranges, right? They're all trying to grab a particular taste and style that somebody likes. For some people, it may just be about looks, and then you can either accept the sound or you can EQ the sound to however you like. These, even for my taste, these might have been a little dry for my ears, though. Just a little. But I stayed for the demo and the demos that I had. Generally speaking, I did think it sounded good. They weren't using a subwoofer. You could tell. There was no ultra deep bass and things like that, but it had good tonality, right? So this is my last room. This is the SVS. Should have got better pictures for these. Definitely sorry about that. But this was just a 2-channel SVS setup for the Pinnacles, which is the speakers I now have. And the reason I wanted to demo them is because I wanted to know how they had theirs set up. So one of the reps before Nick came in, which is one of the other reps who I do know. I've sent emails to him and discussed some things with him before. The other rep, though, we was all talking. There was a lot of people in there as well, like really asking good questions and things like that. And we got onto like placement and things like that. And he then said, well, actually the best position is, there was a row here in the front with 3 seats. Then there was a second row with 3 seats. And the guy said, well, the middle row at the back is actually the money seat, right? So, I was in the left side seat and no one was taking it. I was like, okay, well, I'll take it and we'll see how it sounds. And to be honest, I thought it sounded really, really good. For me, it definitely sounded more laid back than my setup. And there's a couple of reasons why I think why now. Is I think they were pretty smart. They were using this analog, I think this isn't like a receiver. I think this is like an integrated amp for 2-channel only. And on the front there, it said analog. And I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty sure that they was playing this music through a DAC somewhere from this PC. But it sounded really laid back compared to mine. And another thing, I was trying to ask about placement and things like that. Now, I went to the middle seat, and I typically judge being off axis as, if the speakers are facing me, I don't consider it off axis. I just consider it how much angle away from me things are. That's all I consider. My speakers currently are 15 degrees off axis, right? Now, from looking at their speakers, because I was looking at the sides and things like that, to me it looked about 5 degrees, right? So and if you look at it this way, they were towed into the room, right? They're towed into the room, but the sound is still going over your shoulder slightly, right? The right speaker would be going over your shoulder slightly, very, very slightly, and the left one as well. Now, I demoed 2 seats, well, actually 3 seats. My first seat was in the very back row here. And the way they had it set up as well is it did actually have tremendous bass. I can't remember the music they were playing now, but the people next to me thought that the bass was coming from the next room, which is SVS's home theater room. And the guy was like, no, that's actually these speakers. Like, these speakers were actually shaking the whole room. So I was really like, whoa, because I put out a review and I said, well, I still need a subwoofer, right? But when I had the bass in their room, the way they had it tuned, I was like, whoa, you probably don't need a sub with these speakers. The way they had it set up. But again, when I listen to it in my room, I feel as though I just have more control with a sub. There's a lot more things I can do. So... But I was really, really impressed by the bass. Like, to be honest, this room had more bass than any other room in the show, and they weren't using subwoofers. There's no subs. There's no subs in this room. It was 2-channel only. They didn't have a subwoofer in the back, like hidden or anything like that. It was actually from the speaker, and no other subs in the show had this much bass. But this is the type of bass that I get in my room. When I listen to music, the bass that was in that room, that's kind of how I have my bass tuned on from my subs. So I was really interested to, kind of see how they did that. Now, one thing it did teach me is when I sat in the middle seat, I went to sit in the good seat, the golden seat, you could say, or the money seat, and there was no real brightness on the sound. It was, if anything, the sound was laid back, and I was kind of asking the rep, how is the sound so laid back? Because I feel as though because I said to them, I have these speakers, and to me it's a lot more forward sounding than this. And I was trying to think whether it was like the integrated amp, the fact that they were using analog, because this is another thing. When I play things through analog versus, say, a digital device on these speakers, they do sound totally different. When you play them digitally, it's a lot more clinical, but if you play something through analog, it is a lot smoother. So I think from SVS's point of view, what they're using to make these speakers sound like this is very smart, right? They know their gear, they know the way, they probably knows that the highs and lows of the speaker and how to get the best out of them. Analog 100% sounds best out of these speakers, and the show really, taught me that. Now, one thing as well I just want to point out is when I was in the back middle seat, the speakers were maybe like 8 feet away. And I thought as well that could be one of the reasons why they did sound a little bit more tapered down, say, than mine, is my speakers were probably a little closer. So what I did was, where this guy was sitting, he left after about 10-15 minutes. And I went to his seat, and his seat sounded a bit more like the way kind of I was experiencing the speakers. There was a little bit more push on them, and definitely the seat behind me sounded better. So for me, what that showed me was, if you've got speakers and they are potentially brighter, having them just a little further away from you, allowing that treble just to roll off a little bit more, because treble rolls off over distance very quickly. And I think the distance that they had their speakers away from that money seat there, and the degrees, the angle and everything like that, was an indication of, yeah, this does sound very good like that. So I was impressed. I was impressed by the way they had that set up. And again, I think SVS are really smart in the way they had that, the way these speakers set up. Because these speakers, from the reviews I've seen online and from my own experience, they are, if anything, a brighter sounding speaker from the mid-range and up, but could potentially be tapered down using an analog DAC, a very good analog DAC, that is not clinical, right? That is very a laid-back DAC. Would work, again, works really well with these speakers. So, yeah. But I was surprised again how much bass these speakers had. Very surprised. And certain music really does make these speakers sing. So, yeah, it's good to see. And that was about it, yeah. So that was really my day. It's about 4 or 5 hours at the show, and I just wanted to kind of, explain what I felt about things at the show, like expectations. Obviously, when there is more money involved, kind of like my expectation does go up. When somebody says to me, say again, going back to the Trinnov thing, if you are spending this amount of money and this is the absolute best that money can buy, I kind of want to be wowed by it, and I wasn't. So I would love to go to some more setups that are set up in a different way that really can showcase, yes, this is what a Trinnov can offer. Do you know what I would like to see? I would love to see these speakers in this position. I would love to see the pinnacles in a really big room like this. You would need sides as well to really distribute the power and things like that. But I think the SVS pinnacles could hang in this room with the right EQ, with the right setup. Again, cross them over at 80 hertz. You don't need to push these speakers to the absolute bleeding edge. Use mono amps, and I would love to hear them in a big room like this. Obviously, again, you would need huge subs. Like in a room like this, give me 8 18s. Yeah, 8 18s I think should just about do it. If you wanted to go very crazy, 10 to 12, but that's the amount of power you needed in this room to really inflate that bass, right? But again, I think with really, really good setup, I'd love to hear the SVS in a big room like this on a Trinnov. I think they would get them to sound excellent. I really do. Now, SVS's center, I don't think would probably be able to hang in this room because it is a lot smaller, right? I don't think there's any way it could do that. I mean, I'd like to hear it, but I don't think it's big enough. Like if SVS did another range center, like a far bigger center that kind of matched their pinnacles, for size, a bit, almost like this does. You do need a pretty beefy center to match that. But I think, again, with good EQ, good setup, that it could well, I'm not going to say match because I'll get ripped online for saying something like that. But I do think it could hang with really good setup in this room, in a big room like this. So at least I'd like to hear it. So yeah, but you can just see from the scale of this, like these subs are too small. Like for this room, they're just too small. There's just no way you could inflate this room with bass. All right, that was my experience. Long video again, because yeah, again, me and this guy, we would be terrible on an island together, because we would talk 24 hours straight just on the most minute, smallest detail. Like that's the thing. We talked each other's heads off basically, but it was a good time, I thought. So yeah, that was my experience at the show. I am at a stage again in my kind of surround sound setup where I feel as though I want to be picky and very objective about, you know, at this point, what is an upgrade for me in my room? You know, what is an upgrade? So that's kind of like the lens I was going for when I walked in the door, basically. You know, show me something that is better than mine, right? So yeah, thanks for listening, and have a great day. Bye.